So how do you eat an elephant? Well, you don't stick the whole thing in your mouth, that's for sure. As you probably know, the answer to this question is you eat an elephant one bite at a time. Yeah, we all get that. We've heard that like 1,000 times before. But this applies to drawing any pose you want. You break the process down step by step. All right, so let's go ahead and do that right now. Step one is gaining a basic understanding of the proportions of the figure, both male and female. No anatomy. Just skeletons. The reason why you'll want to do this is because if you're trying to draw humans that are, proportionally sound, you want to familiarize yourself with the different measurements and landmarks so you can draw them as accurately as possible. So one thing I learned when I was doing this is the 3-box method, and that just consists of separating the head and the neck, the rib cage, and the abdomen and the pelvis into 3 separate boxes. So here we have the 3 boxes. They should be roughly the same size, but remember the first box is the head and neck, second box is the rib cage, and the third box is the abdomen and the pelvis. For this last box down here, you just basically split this in half, and then you get the top part, which is the abdomen, and the bottom part, which is the pelvis. And there you go. That's the first measurement you want to take into account when doing this. You probably want to familiarize yourself with some other measurements here and some handy landmarks. So if you look at the arms here, the elbows are right here, like at the very end of the rib cage. Next, the upper arm and the lower arm, like roughly the same size. The top half of the body is roughly the same size as the bottom half here. If we zoom into the head right here and we split it vertically and we split it horizontally, you can find the mouth and nose line. The nose line is like right about here, and then the mouth line is like right about here. When it comes to how big your hands should be, they should be big enough to cover up your face but not palm your entire head like a basketball. So measuring from the bottom of the nose up to the top of the head is a pretty good measurement for the hands. You can test this out too if you just put your hand right here, like the palm right here at the bottom of your nose. That looks stupid, but if you just put your hand out like this, you'll see that's like it's pretty close. It's pretty close. So if we were to take this measurement here, we can use that to measure the length of the collarbone. So it'll be like about this size of your hands, that is. When we're drawing, how long should the neck be? We don't want our drawings looking like ET by the time we're done with them, and we don't want our drawings like appearing as if they have no neck at all. So if you look closely, we can actually use the hand measurement / collarbone measurement to determine the length of the neck. If we go to the bottom of the nose and we draw down to the pit of the neck here, this is roughly the same size as your hand. So if we take this measurement, come down here, but next to the hand, it's about the same size. This is also something you can test out IRL. I look flabbergasted right now. But anyways, you can see that the bottom of my palm is like right at the pit of my neck. Well, you probably can't see it, but if you try this out, you'll be able to tell. Well, unless you're this dude, then you're probably out of luck. All right, lastly, you want to understand some proportional differences between men and women. So if we slide over here to this corpse bride, you notice that the rib cage is smaller than the male rib cage. If we look here, the female pelvis is wider than the male pelvis, and it kind of like angles out here, whereas the male pelvis and the male hips are like straight down. So it gives these broads their hourglass figure and the ability to make kids and stuff. And the femur of the female is more slanted than the male femurs. So your femurs are just the bones inside of your thighs, essentially. And as for the collarbones, they're typically a lot straighter than the males, whereas the males' collarbones are more angled. Okay, so that's a lot of landmarks, that's a lot of measurements. So I recommend taking a few days to understand the first step of this process. Just like a basic understanding. You don't need to be like a freaking Stephen Hawking of the first stage. Okay, step 2 is gesture. Gesture is all about observing and capturing the essence of a pose. The less Shakespearean definition of gesture drawing is, just drawing reference as simple as possible. Well, how do you do that? Well, I'm gonna show you. I typically divide the step into 4 stages. First, I draw the torso, the head and the neck, the arms and hands, and finally the legs and feet. For the simple shapes of the torso, for the male and female, we have the rectangle shape for the male and this hourglass shape for females. The top part represents the collarbones, and then we can split these up in order to get the rest of the skeleton. So if we split this rectangle in half, we have the rib cage. The bottom half of the rectangle is going to be the abdomen and pelvis. Once you have the bottom half of the rectangle, go to the bottom half, and then you just split that in half as well. Simple stuff.
Simple.
Okay, let's actually see how I implement this information in an actual drawing session. Okay, so first I'm going to draw in the top part of that torso, which represents the collarbones again. You can determine this by looking at your reference and where the collarbones are. So the collarbones are like angled this way. Now I draw in this curve right here. I'm gonna explain later why I did that, so just keep that in mind. And I continue to complete the shape of the torso here. Probably notice I drew a line straight down the middle of this shape. This is called the line of action. It's basically the main movement that the person is making. If you look at your reference here, she's kind of like stretching her body like in this direction, and then it's being pinched on this side. You want to be thinking about what the line of action is doing as you're drawing your torso shape. If we look at this closely, you'll see that we get the main landmarks that we need to worry about. Here we have the rib cage, we have the abdomen, and here we have the pelvis. So going back to this curve I made at the top here, I did that to add like a sense of three-dimensionality to the shape. So if we were to draw in the rib cage here, we get an actual box here. This is going to help out a ton when we get to the third step of this process. Not only that, but if you look at the reference, you can see that she's like twisting the right side of her body towards the camera, and this part is like a bit further back in the distance here. So I just took that into account while I was doing my gesture drawing. So the next stage is drawing in the head and the neck. You can draw a circle, an oval, like a deformed box like I just did here. It's up to you, whatever floats your boat. I just sometimes like to draw in this box looking shape. We can easily tell which direction the face is looking towards. Okay, here I drew in the neck. Make sure you don't make it too thick or too thin because you don't want your drawing looking like these guys. Okay, so we're gonna fast forward to me completing the arms and the hands here, and boom, there we go. So we have this curve right here, which represents the shoulder. Now all you gotta do is just start from the very top of this torso shape. And then I'm using some C curves in order to draw like some loose sketches of the arms here. Then I draw on a line right here to represent the tricep. Then I draw another line right here to represent the forearm. Same goes for this side. So we're drawing the shoulder right here from the top of the rib cage, which is the collarbones right here. Curve for the bicep, curve for the tricep. Sometimes it's a good idea to draw on a curve like this to like close up the two lines. So the viewer knows if the limb is moving towards the camera or away from the camera. It also adds a greater sense of 3D, and who doesn't like 3D? Then drawing a curve to represent the top of the forearm, bottom of the forearm, and I close this up just so we know which direction the forearm is going. It's coming towards the camera. And I draw in another curve here, and I just draw in like a simple box for the hand here, as screw drawing hands. I'm not doing that. So we're gonna fast forward here to a stage in which I complete drawing the legs and the feet. All right, so there we go. So let's take a look at this. So inside the pelvic region, I drew in like this little underwear type of shape. Drawing this in just like helps me determine like how I should position the legs. Then it's just a matter of observing the reference here. So I draw in a curve to represent the quadricep, and a curve to represent the hamstrings. And if you look at the reference, this quad is actually coming towards us slightly. So we actually like draw in like a little circle here to like show off which direction it's, you know, moving towards. Then you can draw in like a ball to represent the knee, or you can use a tube like I did on this side. It's up to you. So I'm just drawing in a little circle at the top of the lower leg here, then just drawing in the rest of my curves. And then you can just look at the reference to determine like a shape that represents the feet here. Then goes to the other side. Draw a curve right here, represent the quads. Curve here to represent the hamstrings. Then here I decided to go for like a tube shape to connect the upper leg and the lower leg. And a curve here for the front of the lower leg, and a curve like this to represent the calf. And again, you can just observe the reference to draw in a shape that adequately represents the feet here. And I drew in this shape right here to represent the heels she's wearing. So once I did that, that gave me enough information to finally draw in the rest of the forearm and add that hand that I didn't do. So again, for that forearm, I'm just adding in a curve like this, curve on this side. And then nothing too fancy for the hand, just like the simple box looking shape like this. Main takeaways from the step is just to be as loose as possible. You know, you can be messy, and you know, don't obsess over the details and everything, because the looser you are, as you add more elements to your drawing, the more dynamic and human like it's gonna be. And also make sure you're using your C curves to make your gesture drawing more asymmetrical. Got some asymmetrical lines here. See how it like kind of like flows over to the left, whereas we got symmetrical, they kind of like they just oppose each other. Looks fat, static, circular, and ugly. You use asymmetrical curves in order to get that flowy, gestury look, or else your drawing is going to end up looking like the Michelin Man. Okay, step 3 is drawing the mannequin. In order to draw mannequins effectively, you need to be able to know how to rotate volumes in space. Because if you want your characters to be jumping, running, boxing each other, you can't just have them like be like static and like super still. You have to be able to show like their different body parts moving in space and like in different angles and like different camera shots, and you know what I'm talking about. So how do we represent these body parts as simple volumes? So we had 2 boxes for the rib cage and the pelvis. We had like this deformed looking box represent the head. We have cylinders for the arms and legs, shoulders for the knees and ankles, and this wedge looking shape for the foot.
What did he say?
Okay, that was a lot, so let's break it down. Before diving straight into drawing a fully fledged figure with these volumes, I recommend you practice drawing them individually. So getting back to our drawing here, we're gonna go over how to lay in these volumes. We're starting off with the head. We have this deformed box looking shape. Just draw a line right here, 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 and here. So you have like a little rectangle that you can start off with, and then you draw on this line to indicate that this part is moving backwards in space. You can draw on this line and this line to close it up, and then to represent the jaw, you can just draw a line like this and then draw a line like this, and the neck is just like a simple cylinder here. Now we're just going to draw in the boxes for the torso. So we're starting off with the rib cage, going down to the pelvis and drawing in that box, and then we're just going to connect them up right here. If we were to draw over these, really see the 3-dimensionality in them, and then we just connect them up like so. All right, now we're gonna draw in the forms for the arms and the legs because they're kind of like the same thing. I'm drawing in that first arm here, drawing the second arm and the hand right here, and drawing this leg on the right. I'm gonna draw in leg on the left here. So again, the arms and legs just consist of spheres and cylinders. Cylinder for the shoulders right here. You can't see this one entirely because the rib cage is blocking it, and the good thing about using cylinders is you can easily tell where they're facing. So we can see that this cylinder is moving towards the camera because we can see the bottom plane like this. It's just slightly tilted towards the camera because this bottom plane is pretty thin. If the cylinder was directly facing the camera, then we'd have an actual circle like this. We have a sphere here, have a cylinder here, then we're just drawing in a box shape for the hand like that. So the upper arm is facing away from the camera, so you can draw like this. You have the elbow, which is that little sphere that's behind the forearm and the upper arm, and we can just draw in a curve like this to represent the forearm here. Then we're just drawing in a box shape for the hands, and it's the same process for drawing the leg. Just drawing the cylinder to represent the upper leg here, and you can either draw in a tube or you can draw in a circle. It's up to you for the knee. And we draw in the lower leg here, then a circle for the ankle. And this foot shape is separated into 3 sections. So we have this part right here, which is like a square, and we have this section of the foot, which is like the middle portion. This part represents the toes, and you essentially just split up the foot like that. After drawing all these forms, actually put your knowledge to the test by drawing figures of your own based off of reference. By practicing this step in the process over and over again, your character is going to be looking a lot more 3-dimensional rather than looking like, you know, flat Stanley. This step is for all you health nuts out there. The organic step. See what I did there? Because it's organic and health nuts. Yeah, let's go ahead and continue. This step of the process is about making your drawing look lifelike, more human, more animal-like. You know, make it look like it's actually a living thing rather than just looking like freaking neck with just shapes. I'm going to show you how to replace these boxes with more organic forms of the rib cage and the pelvis. I'm just going to start off by drawing in a more rounded version of this box here. And the rib cage has this big opening in the middle, and that's where your abs go, or your flabs go if you're a big fella. I'm going to draw in this line right about here and going to connect the sides up just like this. So I'm just going to draw in a curve right here to represent the back portion of the rib cage. Okay, next I'm going to draw in a shape for the pelvis here. So I'm going to draw some rounded corners right here on all 4 corners of this box. Then I'm just going to connect them up. Then I'll draw a line right here to represent the crotch area. Then I'm going to draw a line right here on the front plane to connect it. And since this is 3D, we need to draw a line that shows its depth. So we're drawing in a line like this, and we can connect it up like so. Now we have both of these shapes, we can just connect them up with a line like this. And we're going to do that on both sides here. And you can also draw a lighter line line right here in order to make the abdomen look a bit more dimensional. So this is the side plane, and then this is the front plane right here. When it comes to drawing the pelvis, you can draw a more rigid version of it, or you can draw this more complex shape over here. All it really consists of is like a top plane that's like ovular in shape. You have some curves that meet right here. Then you have a curve in the back in order to indicate that it's like actually wrapping around. Whatever you decide to use, you can still attach the hips like this and then the legs like this for both shapes. So it's up to you which one you want to use. If you're someone who needs a lot of practice with this, then I recommend you draw in a bunch of boxes, then carve out the organic shapes of the rib cage and the pelvis. That way when you get to drawing full figures, it's going to be a lot easier for you. All right, to do this step, we're going to start off by drawing like an oval inside the box of the rib cage. Then you gotta split it in half and draw in these curves to make it actually look like a rib cage, not just an oval, of course. And right here I am connecting it to the pelvis. Then just like drawing in the hand. At the very top I drew in some lines to represent the traps. Traps are just your muscles like right here. Like if you're a gym bro, you already knew that. And I draw in the shoulder right here that attaches to this cylinder, which represents the upper arm. So the shoulder is like this curved triangle looking Dorito thing. Once I draw in the trap in the shoulder, I move on to drawing the upper arm. So right here we have this curve that represents the bicep, and then we have this S curve that represents the tricep. Drawing like a little point right here, a little triangle type shape to represent the elbow. And I just follow my drawing to draw in the forearm here. Notice how the forearm is overlapping the upper arm here. This is actually going to communicate to the viewer that the forearm is moving towards the camera. Just remember, overlap equals 3D. And here again, I don't really get too detailed with the hand. I just draw in the index finger, and then I just group up all the fingers right here, this shape. Next up, I'm moving on to the other side, drawing in the shoulder. So it's a curve like this, based on the reference. Then I'm just completing the shoulder by drawing that curved Dorito triangle thing. And I'm doing the same process here. I'm drawing in the tricep, the bicep, elbow, which is this little point middle of the arm right here, and drawing the forearm, and then a simple shape for the hand right here. This kind of looks like a Ninja Turtles hand or an ET hand, but again, not obsessing over the details here. The main focus here is the figure itself, the pose itself. And what I'm doing here is I'm drawing in this 3D form for the pelvis. So I'm kind of carving it out of that box that we made earlier. So it's like a three-dimensional pair of underwear. It kind of just helps me determine how to connect the legs to the pelvis. And I continue on. I add a curve to represent the hamstrings, and I'm adding in a few lines for the knee right here. And then I'm drawing in some curves to represent the calf and shin part of the lower leg. Also add this simple shape right here to represent the ankle. Then I add more curves to represent the foot, and on to the next leg. So here we have some curves for the upper leg, curves for the lower leg again. Then just adding in some style here, drawing in the details of her heel, drawing in those straps, and then her foot. And then to top it all off, I'm just drawing in the head, looking at the reference here, drawing in the jawline, and then I actually draw in a circle here, represent the side of the head. That's where this box comes in handy. You can separate the different planes in order to add the features accordingly. All right, then I'm just drawing the sunglasses here. All you gotta do is just look at the reference or whatever you're drawing and literally just copy it. Drawing in the nose, the lip, a bunch of simple shapes, and then the hairline as well.
Look at your hairline. Your is way back here. If you was in the army, you have to sloop like this. Yes, sir.
And just like a little half circle or incomplete circle, oval, whatever you want to call it, for the ear. So if you're using a female reference, you can draw in the breasts like I did here. So you end up with like these types of shapes or volumes, and the pec muscles are actually directly under the breast. All right, here I'm just adding more details. I actually changed up her nose shape because she was looking a lot like white Michael Jackson, with the nose job. So here we have the final drawing here based on the reference. You can see the previous steps we've taken to get to this point. After this step, you want to assess your work and see where you messed up. Maybe you drew the arms too long, the legs too long, the head too fat or whatever. Just assess your work, and as you continue to draw more and more, you'll be able to like skip certain parts in the process. So what do you do after learning how to draw the figure? Like, how do you actually apply it? Well, you may want to check out this video where I talk about my first week of learning animation. I also provide tips on how you can get into that field of art as well, and hopefully you can use that to put your figures into motion. All right, that's it. Later.